I'm Susan Dackerman. I am the director here at the Cantor, and I welcome you all to tonight's exciting program, conversation, and concert with the artist Lonnie Holley, who we are delighted to have had here at the Cantor and at Stanford for the past week. We are having this program in the newly reinstalled galleries of our permanent collection of modern and contemporary art. Just 2 weeks ago, we reopened this new arrangement organized by Aleesa Alexander, who is our new assistant curator of American art. And she took some old favorites from the collection. She mixed in some works that you may not have seen before, made some very smart loans from individuals and other institutions, and has created this new installation that is replete with interesting and expansive ideas. So I hope you all have a chance to look closely at this new exhibition. But this is something that we very much are aiming for here at the Cantor, making the spaces, the art spaces, places to gather and places to have conversations and performances. Because I think one of the things that we can do well in a museum, one of the things that artists, and art history make possible are connections. Connections to the artwork, connections to other people, connections with ourselves, and connections to the world around us. So we have a very special opportunity this afternoon and this evening to make such connections with Mr. Holley and Aleesa Alexander, our curator, who I am going to ask to come and begin the event. So thank you very much for being here.
Well, first of all, thank you so much to everyone who came out. I know people came from near and far for this show, for this performance, so thank you for that. And thank you most of all for Lonnie for being here, and Matternet for always making these kinds of things possible. I thought it'd be particularly appropriate to have Lonnie here because he is included in this reinstallation. So in that corner over there you can see, some of you can see his assemblages, and then the large work on paper on the wall is also Lonnie's. And we are lucky to have those from a wonderful local institution, Paulson Fontaine Press. Give it up. So thank you. But without further ado, I think I'd like to introduce you, Lonnie, by talking about some of your recent wonderful successes, if you'll allow me. So, you may have heard of Lonnie's work in a number of arenas. Close to home here, Lonnie's work was in the wonderful DeYoung show, Revelations, and he's also getting more and more attention now for his music. So a lot of people know you for your music now and not necessarily as much your visual art, but we are going to change that today. Another wonderful thing that has just happened is that you have just released your first film that was accepted. It was an official selection at Sundance, so congratulations on that, your very first film. And so I would want to start off by introducing all these sort of wonderful new accomplishments, but then now we're going to go back and kind of go to where it all began. And I'm wondering if you would be able or be willing to share with us a little bit about your life and how we got to these pictures here, which is of you at your Birmingham art environment from the mid-90s.
Actually, it all began with the sandstone. You can see me holding it there. I started doing the sandstone sculpture after my sister had lost two of her children in a house fire. You can see how big the pieces were. The thing were that we was, both my sister and I, is from the mother that had 27 children. So that alone,
That's something, yes.
yeah, it was like she couldn't afford to bury the children, and not only bury them, but have a tombstone. So I started cutting, you can see the shape of that one that I'm holding. I started cutting them in the shape of a tombstone.
Right, and this was in 1979, so this is when your artistic practice sort of first began from this tragic moment, right? And then you took sandstone, and this industrial sandstone that he's holding is a common cast-off material in Birmingham, because Birmingham was a steel capital in the 19th and early 20th century, and that's part of the process of making steel, is they use that material. So it's a very local and kind of special material to the area. Here's many more in your yard.
It was thousands of them.
Yes.
It was like a spiritual blessing in a sense. We are so talented, and a lot of times we have so much buried deep within us until we don't understand the sensibility to the orchestration of whatever it is that we're doing. And then once we start doing it,
Yeah.
it's like pouring out, your cup runneth over.
Right. Once that river starts to flow.
So when that spills, it's the identity of what was in the cup. So this is what was in my cup from not only myself, but my inheritance of my DNA or my ancestry. So I didn't really notice that until I met Mr. William Arnett, Matt Arnett's father, that came into my life. And then I started furtherly wanting to know who I am.
Right.
Where did I come from, or where my mother came from?
Right. Investigating yourself through this sort of new visual practice.
The Bible says, know thyself. Right. We have to learn of ourselves, and then once we learn to appreciate that, totally appreciate it with all heart and all soul, and then it's going to start just blossoming like a bunch of roses, not just one rose.
And that it did. Oh no. Well, here.
That's all right. Leave it.
No. I want to go. I want to talk about this.
Okay.
I can do it.
Okay.
I can reach. So, a great tragedy, but thankfully, Bill, who you were speaking of, took lots of photos. We have lots of documentation, at least in that regard, of your work. And of course, I never got a chance to see it because I was like 10. But it was from what I understand, it was just this amazing site-specific sort of work that was always growing and changing. And I remember you telling me yesterday, you were talking about how in the neighborhood that you lived in, waste management was not really a thing. You didn't get people...
For a long time in America, there were no street and sanitation.
Right.
There were only borders to people's property. And a lot of the humans kind of wrecked their things to the edge of their properties, not really disrespecting other people's property. They didn't just go over the line.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, by me being a young man that was up and down the ditches and the creeks and going on the border of those property lines,
and collecting
I got
things.
a chance to see a lot of material and play with them from 5 until I got to be the grown man that I am.
So some of these materials that you were encountering are things that ultimately, that...
Discarded and thrown away, yes.
And then you would take these and make assemblages like you see here, and then, of course, the one that is actually, I think, on view now still at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. So
this piece called Yielding to the Ancestor While Controlling the Hands of Time is really, really important to me, because not only do I continue to yield daily, well, secondarily now, because a lot of people don't understand, by the the digital flip, we are going into time by secondly. We said history month, history moments. I say history seconds, because historically we are now digitally being defined by the second. So this one is called Yielding to the Ancestor by yielding. And so if you look at the top of that, that's a mass at the top. And then there's a mass on the top of that one. And then it's more like a target with the hands of time on
I
it.
see.
And we are the target. We are the target. Always remember, humans, we are the target. We're the target within ourselves, the exterior and interior. And these are the things that I try to show even back then, that we are the target.
Right, so this is one of your sort of older works in that sense, and I love that you sort of have unpacked it for us, and these are the kinds of topics and themes that you have continued to explore throughout your work. And the Smithsonian was the first sort of major institution to show your work, right, in this?
Actually, the pieces that went to the Smithsonian was two pieces of sandstone.
Right.
One was called Baby Being Born, and the other one was called Time. Because at the time, no matter what we have in our recollections, it was all about the babies being born, continuation, caring, being concerned, and growing that child for us to become the elders, to be able to appreciate the growth of the child. So that was one. And then the other one was time. No matter how much we do, no matter how big the mountain is, we can cut that mountain down, but we can use all parts of that mountain and make our cities and make whatever we want to make out of them. But we, as the people in America, we just waste so much.
Yeah. This is why I invited Lonnie, because he's the best person to speak about his work, as you can already tell. And so that exhibition was in 1981, right? More Than Land and Sky?
Yeah, it started and lasted until 83, I think. But it went 64 cities, 13 original colonies. And that's where I got my title, Lonnie Holley Sr., an African-American artist. And I've been proud of that ever since.
Wonderful. I didn't actually know that. Gotta keep it closer to her face.
Sorry.
It's okay. So this piece was sort of the entry piece to your property in Birmingham, right?
A lot of people was kind of scared of this piece because they didn't know what to make of it. But that was at a time that they was just coming up on my property, stealing all of my metal, breaking the sculptures down, trampling over their art, and doing things that they wanted to do to it. And I didn't have nothing else but a grandmother's screen door, and I put a cross on it, and I put it down at the entry of my property. And it's kind of let everybody know this is a spiritual land.
It's a sacred space.
You come through this screen door, you got to deal with it. I mean, we got to do that now. We got to still put grandmama, granddaddy, we got to put our ancestors before us and say, if you come through that, you know, you've dealt with something. I don't be wanting to make nobody feel like I'm throwing no curse out there, but if we can't get it right, we gonna continue to do wrong until we won't be no more as humans. We have to start all over.
It's a powerful object to sort of place at the entryway of your property. Here's just another sort of shot of the property. Just for some more.
But let's not.
Do you want to talk about it, or are we good?
The thing about colors and colorations and shapes and forms, whether they are abstract or whether they have patterns of something that we see in our community, or whether it's an old garage door like I'm holding with the 1, 2, 3, 4 panels on it, and then those panels is talking about the 4 worst abuses, all the way from the earthly abuse all the way up to the universal abuse. If we get to fighting out in the universe, and we call these, that's the top one, and we call these spontaneous bursts of energy that is, we already living in a mass of energy, and if we cause other energies to be, it's like boom, boom, boom. It's like something, you ever had a stomach ache and you had to get some something to relieve the gas that you already,
Indeed,
it's something
yes.
else. We need to think.
Yeah.
We really, really need to think. Do we need to go any further in explosives that we can't handle what it's all about. You know, that my thing was only kind of examples through materials. I mean, I'm sorry to have to say it.
Lonnie?
Practice make perfect.
Yeah. So just to be clear, as Lonnie mentioned earlier, this amazing yard environment, of which there used to be many kinds of art environments like this all over the Black South, was destroyed in 1997 by the city of Birmingham because they apparently needed the airspace, right, for the new airport that they were building, the Birmingham Shuttlesworth Airport.
Yeah, mine was demolited because of the expansion. They said I was in the noise buffer zone, but they haven't did anything with the property yet. And I think it could have been a mainstay,
Right.
but because I could have moved and lived with my children somewhere else, but I still could have been in and out of my environment and taken care of it. But again, I'm moving forward.
Moving forward. But on that note, before we do that, let's talk about the city of Birmingham a little bit more and sort of what we in our imagination think of when we think about the city of Birmingham and its relationship to civil rights. But you were there. That's where you were born. And so these photos are from 1963.
I was born there. One would say, you're in the arena now. You're in the perimeter. And you are a child. If you see one with the dogs, that's when the children start
they were young.
taking the place of their parents, their grandparents. Because if you can look at what's going on, this person, even though he's showing that he's not fearful of the dog, the young people showed a little bit less fear than the older people. And again, if you look at the other side, the children was more capable of taking the abuse, and we knew how to go out and dress for the abuse of the fire hose and stuff like that. There was so many ways that we had to challenge the occasions that was occurring.
Yes. So you have sort of a kind of direct relationship to this history, which is part of what I think makes your work so fascinating in that, as we'll talk about.
But
Yep.
I were not actually a
You were not
participant
there
like that
because you were 13.
I was picked up during this period.
Yes.
I was picked up and put in this place called Alabama Industrial School for Negro Children. I didn't quite make it to town. I was going up and down the creeks trying to find my way home to my mother. So it's almost like I was Little Red Riding Hood, and these people was the wolf, and I had to make it through that to get to grandmama house in order to get to mama house, but I didn't make it to not even to grandmama house before they picked me up. So I was in this place called Alabama Industrial School for Negro Children.
Right, which was essentially a kind of slave labor camp for children, where you were made to kind of work on this farm. Because you were talking about yesterday, there was curfew, of course, for young people, and if you were out past curfew or, because you were just picked up, right?
Cruel. It was really, really cruel.
And you were there for many years.
I was there for some years, but the main thing about being treated so cruel and never knowing what you are being treated this cruel for.
Yeah.
You know, every day you're having to pick cotton, and if you didn't have your 50 pounds of cotton, by half of the day you got a whooping. And then if the evening, if you didn't have the other 50 pounds of cotton, you're supposed to have 100 pounds of cotton at least by the whole day over. And so that means you got 2 whoopings in that day. So I had got kind of tired of that and ran away. And then so they caught me and brought me back. Within a 2-day period, I had got knocked out and got knocked upside the head by 3 grown men. And then the next day, I got knocked in the back of my head and then beat it almost to death for trying to run away.
Yeah.
So that was some cruelty there that I'll never forget. It's almost like you being shell-shocked. So I had to do my art to actually be a shield between my emotions.
That's a really interesting sort of way of putting it, this idea of using art as a shield or a kind of buffer, right?
It hurt.
Yeah. Let's talk about how you've sort of done that in pieces like this one, Pressure from the Burn.
A piece like this, Pressure from the Burn, you got two entities right at one time. You got the fire hose incident that is wrapped around the cross.
Right, an old
You got
fire
the-
hose, yeah.
Yeah, you got the cross that is signifying something being blown to pieces.
Right.
And I put it into form of a cross because I still feel whatever I do, I'm obligated to speak on the behalf of those that cannot speak any longer, that has passed away, or just think about the three little girls, because if you look at that piece, I have some nails in certain places on that cross that is representing the four little girls that got bombed in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. So my thing is, it's, and again, the one that you just pulled up is 3 shovels to bury you with, is because my grandmother actually helped dug the graves for 3 of the little girls that had got bombed and died in the 16th Street Baptist Church. So it was just that close to my family
Right.
that the occurrence that had occurred were involved. I mean, can you imagine your grandmama coming home and she's all moody and crying, and somebody is wondering what's the matter, grandmama, and grandmama having to keep that within her and telling you that she dug some of the hardest graves to be dug. So when I got a chance to see this material, I had went to the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and I saw how elaborate their funeral fencing outside of the graves and things were.
Yeah.
And then I found, after meeting Mr. Joe Mentor, I looked down into the grave and I saw the material that was down into a grave hole about that small. And then I didn't see nothing but rotting debris of what the leftover or the coffin was like. So a lot of people say, what is your inspiration? Why you get this material and how did you get this material? A lot of times we got to, if we are interested in understanding the human perceptions or what their inspirations are, let's dig a little deeper because we are moving into the future.
Yeah. I love this piece because for a number of reasons, in addition to its sort of aesthetic import, its relationship to this sort of larger history, right? And then also your personal history and the tattered sort of cloth that is stained with that sort of rich red kind of Alabama soil, right? And then it begins to kind of look like the color of blood, old sort of dried blood on this cloth, right?
But the 3 shells, they are different. Each one of the shells are different. And so, it's almost like today, my grandmama, I call her Mama, did this way, and tomorrow she might have did it the next way. Because every day you don't have the same mindset when you go to do something. The next piece that you're looking at is Fifth Child Burning.
Keeps doing this.
Fifth Child Burning here. And I had a niece to get burned up in a house fire.
Yeah.
And my thing with this one here, where I did a piece of music about it, is over pacifying a child. A lot of times the parent want to just give, but they want the child to be content while they're giving. So if you look at all the material that I chose to work with here were things that had to be plugged up.
Yeah.
And then also in this were things that had the type of gases or the things when they burn.
They create a noxious kind of
She actually
smell.
wasn't just burnt crisply to death. She actually suffocated from all the different things that was burning in her room at one time. So my whole intention was to allow the fire workers and everybody else to have anything to do with humans and fire-related incidents to read or see these things as an example of us moving forward into fireproof materials.
Right. And the title, Fifth Child, right, is in direct reference to the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing because it killed 4 little girls. And so here you've kind of folded in this other story.
In a sense, because a lot of people claim that when I do my work, I may be over, what they call it, overplacing the objectivity to events in a shameful manner. But I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad about leaving a child at home or anything like that. I'm trying to bring us up to the educated manner. If we don't learn to do this better, then we are going to continue to be, I call it the quicksand fields of stupidity. We will never get out of the quicksand fields of stupidity.
Yes, I understand that right now. Let's talk about, do you want to talk about this one or do you want to talk about?
This one is actually a wonderful piece.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I want the audience to kind of look and see, can they determine what it is that I had to work with. But I'm going to go ahead and give you the facts of the matter because, well, I'm put to do that. But these materials here actually came from graveyard materials. When you offer flowers at the grave, I had went to this place called Gee's Bend, Alabama, and that's where I first did my first piece of music. I never knew that I was going to ever get a chance to have a chance to go to the recording studio, and Matt Arnett had took some of my music, and he had been playing it, and he said, well, one day we'll get an opportunity for you to go in the studio. So he had a little small studio set up in a church there, and the ladies came in, and they felt like, you know how it is, a little on the shy side, and feeling bewildered. And I went out into the graveyard and picked up some of these burnt flowers, and I made this piece honoring them and showing them that I could come back in and give them their flowers while they yet live, to show them the strength of the spirit.
A kind of offering.
It was an offering to them, but to encourage them. Yeah. Come on, bring it. You know, let's do it. We got to do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it, indeed. Do you want to talk about this or Dr. King?
Oh, I want to talk about this one because spoon and change. Today, we're living in a world that is conditioning itself to the point. Right now, there's a lot of people that is hungry. There's a lot of people that is homeless. So you're not going to go out and put no shackles on those peoples, but you control them by hunger. These 2 spoons, a tablespoon and a teaspoon, they matter. You understand what I'm saying? The big spoon, it doesn't matter if you're big and you off and you think you got yourself situated. And this happened when the government shut down. They thought they had themselves situated, had enough in the bank, blah, blah, say, boom, 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 blam, boom, boom. You know, that's when I got the music that way. I won't have to do all these blah, blah. But again, we allow ourselves to be put into these chains because we don't plant anything no more around us. We don't have no property. Yeah. We don't even want to put nothing in a cup or a can like Grandmama now did to glorify that I appreciate just being out of this change.
Yeah, I love the simplicity of this piece and sort of combination with some of your other works like Fifth Child Burning, which are so much more dense with material. Here, you're able to sort of do this and make a statement with a very sort of economic use of materials, right? And it really sort of shows your range. Moving to a more kind of installation type work, this is the first time we heard The King.
I really think that this is a strong piece, but mostly everything that I try to do, I try to use the strength of it and leave that in a corner. And then when people see that, they get a better understanding than me standing there trying to orchestrate definition. But this one here, if you look at it, there is a poor people's corner where you got a regular radio.
On the left.
Yeah. and you got a little clock, and you got something else on that radio, and you got some stuff on the wall. But we always had that in our homes. And then on the other side of the wall, you got Home Sweet Home, you got Elaborate, and you got the President's Seal, and you got the governor of Alabama. He was on the Bible and all the flashlight and the radio, blah, blah, blah. And deep in the corner, you have the voter's box with the Billy Club on it. And you got all of this stuff going on. My material that I tried to choose, because I have to have Matt to go with me, because otherwise going into an antique shop and picking out just the right time of material to orchestrate the type of this kind of setting, it get to be hard to do. And that's when I said to Matt, I really appreciate Matt and his time of being, well.
I think that's a great point that you bring up, and I think there's been sometimes a misconception with your work in this idea that you use discarded material because it's sort of what's around or old materials, but you're very, very thoughtful in the things that you pick, right? You pick and choose things that retain this kind of historical or personal resonance, right? It's not just random. You are really sort of looking and searching for materials.
I want things that have a power to it.
Right.
I want things that hasn't been touched. I want things that actually can, I don't want to bring people to their knees or make them cry, but in order for me to be dealing with the mentality and moving on into reality, because we're moving into the digital where none of this won't be necessary because you got the flip-flip. What I mean by the flip-flip, there is no tick-tick no more.
It's flip-flip
I mean,
now.
you don't have a time clock going tick, tick, tick. You got a little bitty illuminated lights going flip, flip, flip with the digital flips of time. So people are not going to actually want a house full of stuff. They're going to be wanting to go through stuff. They're going to have a TV, instead of this on the wall, they have a monitor on the wall, and then it'll be programmed to bring up the visual sites that they want to see. Sorry I have to say that, but we're moving into the future.
Indeed. So Lonnie, we have a few minutes left, and so I want to think about what we should talk about next. We can look
I think obstacles before the goal, if you don't mind pulling that up.
Which one?
The
Obstacle,
pieces,
this next one?
Yeah, that right there. I want to thank Boston Press for allowing me to have the opportunity to come in and express myself there. They gave me the freedom of expression there with both of these pieces.
Yeah.
One of them is called Obstacles Before the Goal with the soccer ball in it, showing that no matter where and how we get in the game, the rules and regulations, it's the obstacles that we have to come through before we even get in the game. And then the pressure in order to win. You understand what I'm saying? And then the other piece is actually a piece of board that we found, and I jigged it out. That was a board that I jigged out. I didn't draw that on no paper first. I just jigged it out by hand. And then we came up with our coloration of it, and then we did our placementation of it. And to see that done and get back off of it and say, wow, I did this. I mean, when we say wow to ourselves, we have accomplished something. It makes something inside of us from our childhood feel good about what we have accomplished. And then we lay that before our ancestors and say, grandmama, mama, grandpa, whoever else is in my spiritual realm, here it is, my offering. Look at what I've done.
I'm not very good at that myself often. So
Yes,
it's
you are. You just don't see it. You're good at it.
So maybe I do have one question that I want to ask you, and then we can wrap up and get to
I
it.
think not. I think you're going to
No, I
bring
got
that
a million
another-
more slides, but
I
we
know,
can't.
bring
But
the
we
big
can't
one
look
on
at
there.
all of them.
I'm
There's
sorry.
like so
I
many.
know. Bring it on there. Bring it. Show them to
Okay,
it.
but this has to be the last one.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Speaking of ancestors.
That's it.
Okay. It's a good call.
We could leave with that one, and while I'm sitting up, you can show them one more where they can get this stuff off the stage. But this year,
Just show you the
again,
rest of the 20 slides.
again, guys, this is called Supported by the Ancestor. No matter how heavy we see our problems be, or how close to the returning to the earth that we have to come. You can see it got 2 stones on it. When I did this piece, I wanted to show no further, no matter how far we got those stones away, it took our brains to get it there. I call it brainsmithing. We had to get it there. And then no matter how low we want to go with the depths of where we're trying to take this exploration, we can get it there. Can you dig it?
Yeah.
So we
Indeed.
can get it there.
Yes, we can. So I will just say a couple more things, even though we could talk for much longer, but we will not. Is that Lonnie is playing in the presence of one of your sort of great colleagues, right? This beautiful piece by Thornton Dial that sits behind him. And I'd love it if you would say a few words about Mr. Dial since you knew him yourself.
Sometime when we churn into just verbal appreciation for what each other do and show each other that we are doing it for a purpose, we start working so hard for that purpose, and we'll work that all the way to death. And that's what Mr. Dial did from the time that I met him until the time that he died. He became an artist. He didn't know what art were, but once he found out what art were, he found out that it had placement, and it had an opportunity to let him see what the ancestors had left behind, because we junked so much of our ancestors' materials. We didn't give them no values, but we gave them values, but we slipped and did it, and we put them in antique shops, and we put them in different places. And now those things costing us thousands and thousands of dollars just to retrieve even one skillet that my grandmama might have had, one old pot or something. But Mr. Dial, no matter how rotten that pot were or how rusty that skillet were, he knew how to weave it in. If you look at this piece, it's almost done like a quilt. And it's just beautification.
It is. Well, Lonnie, we are so lucky to have you. I think I speak for everyone when I say that. And we're very looking forward to seeing this aspect of your practice and listening to it most of all. So thank you, of course, for being here. You have anything you want to say, though, before we do? Or are you good?
I'm good, but I'd just like to say thanks to this opportunity.
Of course.
I'll just say that, and then I'll prove the rest.
Good.